So this is called the YatesDodson Law. What this says is we have, as humans, a level of optimal arousal. Okay, so our brain knows when it knows arousal or it knows relaxation, right? So arousal can be anxiety. It can also be attention deficit or hyperactivity. So naturally, and YatesDodson Law specific to ADHD, Zental is the psychologist associated with this theory, says that our arousal is like a biological need, like thirst or hunger. So what I mean by arousal is that stimulation piece that we're talking about with ADHD. So when you're under-aroused and you have ADHD, or even when you're under-aroused here, maybe you're at a red light and you're under-aroused and you take out your cell phone, you do something to get that arousal level back up. Okay, so you're constantly always seeking to be at that optimal level. So children who have ADHD and adults who have ADHD naturally have higher levels of arousal. So they do better. They're seeking additional arousal than maybe someone like you or me. And we all have variable levels, but they need more, okay? So they are constantly seeking to be at this point where your performance is the strongest and your arousal isn't inhibiting your performance, okay? So if you think about, this law was initially developed with anxiety, right? So if you're not anxious, you're not really worried about something, maybe you have a test and I don't really care about it, probably not going to perform too well. If you're on the other side of this and you're super worried and you're kind of in tune with all your thoughts and I knew this question, what was I doing? Why didn't I study this? I could have studied more. Maybe I lost sleep over this. Then you're going to perform poorly. So you're looking for that medium level, okay? So with children who have ADHD, they might be lower naturally. And to get them to this point, that is what the stimulant medication is doing, okay? So we're giving them an internal stimulant to get them to this peak, okay? So I know that sometimes children will, start off on 5 milligrams of drug X, and then maybe it'll go up to 10, and then they'll be adjusting it. They're trying to get them to that peak point where they're aroused enough to do well in school, and it's not inhibiting their performance. Does that make sense? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One quick question.
Go ahead.
What does a stimulant medication do? What kinds of effects does it have for a person who is misdiagnosed and doesn't have ADHD?
Okay. So again, I want to emphasize that my background is not in medicine, but I did marry a doctor, real doctor. So it counts, right? It's like shared brain. So what I know about people who, if they take stimulants and they are misdiagnosed, have you ever drank too much coffee? Yeah. Like too much to the point where like you were very aware of your heart rate and you were shaking? Okay, so it's very similar to that. It can create a lot of feelings of physiological arousal as well as anxiety, right? So when we tend to tune into our physical sensations, or if we Google them, we convince ourselves that we might be dying. So someone who doesn't have ADHD but is maybe prescribed a stimulant or it's too high of a stimulant, that's going to kind of spill over into other areas of their life. So they're going to likely feel more anxious. They're going to have a decreased appetite. They're not going to sleep well. And it's really going to mimic some symptoms of anxiety. So it's almost like caffeine intoxication. They might have more frequent urination, things like that. And we talked about enuresis a little bit earlier. So they might have some problems with that. You're welcome. I love token economies. We as people love reinforcement, okay? Everyone's here because they're getting reinforced with the CEU. We all go to work because we get reinforced with a paycheck. We work on reinforcement. That's how we survive. Parents oftentimes, when we introduce these ideas in treatment, at least in my experience, say, I hate bribing my child. It's not bribing. You're not bribing someone if you're reinforcing them, okay? So kind of, again, this goes back to that education piece. What is a token economy and how can it help? And how does it help us in our everyday life? We get reinforced for things all the time. So typically, children with ADHD are less sensitive to the social praise. They might just act and not think and then not really apologize, or they don't have those social norms. And they need more powerful reinforcement systems. It's just not working. Even when I tried these positive statements, wasn't working as well. So a token economy is kind of a segue into something more powerful that's also easy. So giving a systematic reward system, which is what a token economy is, it's rewarding behaviors and you're working toward a goal. This works for ADHD, kids that have ADHD. It works for almost anything, honestly. If anyone's ever worked inpatient or at a prison, people have token economies on the schizophrenia floor, or with the really disturbed inmates, we had a token economy. So this is something that's global, but we'll just talk about it based on the ADHD. So usually for kids about 4 and up, they'll start to understand that if I do this and I earn a sticker, and once I earn 5 stickers, I get a dinosaur. Okay. So it's sort of like a monetary system, except you're using stickers, coins, tokens, something of that sort. What happens when you use a token economy? Rather than giving somebody, paper, money, coins, things like that have immediate reinforcers, you give them a sticker, you might give them a chip, whatever it might be that you come up with the system with your child or with your child and the therapist. And you give it to them right then and there when they do that behavior. Okay, so let's think of a target behavior that we're working on. So maybe I'm working with my child on sitting for 5 minutes. Sitting still for 5 minutes, not getting out of your chair. Are we gonna try to work for sitting for an hour? No, we're gonna start small. We've got to start small. So maybe if they sit for 5 minutes, as soon as that 5-minute timer goes off, boom, they get a token. That's immediate reinforcement, and now they know exactly why they got that token. It's not, it's the end of the day, you earned 5 tokens. How many behaviors did I do in one day? Well, I remember I hit my brother. I also did a good thing. I don't know what I'm getting reinforced for. So we're trying to reinforce right then and there when the behavior's happening, okay? So it allows for that immediate reinforcement. Again, more powerful than social rewards. It's actually really exciting for kids when they earn something. It's, they think they're amazing, and that's great. So it really helps build that self-esteem that we see is so low in these kids. It's convenient. I can have a token economy on this paper, and I can take it with me when I go to Walmart, and I have my kiddo with me. So if we have certain behaviors that we're working on, which we'll talk about in a minute, I can reinforce those as they're happening, okay? Because these rewards retain value, they understand they're working towards something larger. So no matter how many stickers I get, it's still very rewarding because I know that if I get one more sticker, I get the dinosaur that I've been working toward. This is a very organized approach. So what I mean by that is when you're devising a token economy, we have target behaviors. They're very, very specific, okay? Good behavior at school, is that specific? No. Cleaning your room, is that specific? Not really. So maybe we're going to start with making our bed. Or maybe we'll start with completing 10 minutes of homework. So very specific behaviors, okay? And you're working your way up. We're not, we're starting small so that they can earn something. They know that they can do it. We're building self-efficacy as well as we're doing this. Positively stated goals, I think, is one of the biggest, most important things to remember. So if I told you all, don't picture an elephant right now, who is picturing an elephant? Yeah. When we actively tell ourselves not to do something, we want to do that more. If we actively tell someone that has an impulse to want to do something already, they're going to want to do it more. So we're positively stating our goals. Remain seated for 5 minutes. Not, don't get out of your seat. So making sure they're positively stated and they're measurable, okay? I'm able to tell when 5 minutes is up and that you've been sitting there the whole time. This is great for increasing positive parental attention. I used to do some behavioral parent training back in my graduate program, and the first session we have kind of a whiteboard and we're going over, okay, what are the bad behaviors that you're wanting to extinguish? What are you wanting your child to no longer do? And the list would be like a scroll from the old days. Okay, well, what are the good behaviors? Just absolute silence, okay? So it's not that the child doesn't have any good behaviors. It's that, we remember more negative things than we do positively. That's just the human way. So now we're when parents are like, ooh, they have to do something positive. So maybe I'm not attending to that as well. I'm just attending to all these negative things. It really kind of flips the perspective. So now I know what I'm looking for. And now I'm giving positive attention, and that's helping the relationship. Because if you have a more positive relationship with your child or with your student, they're wanting to please you, okay? If you have a negative relationship, they want to watch you yell. This also teaches the concept of good work ethic and taking ownership of our behavior. And I have a lot of things that I have trouble controlling, but at the end of the day, I can do this. I can control myself. I can choose to do this or I can choose to do that. I do have the power of choice. So kind of working on those concepts that we see can be problematic in the end. So that delayed gratification. I'm not getting the dinosaur right now. I'm getting a sticker right now. I know that I can work my way up to the dinosaur, okay? So this is an example. This would probably be for an older kid. If it was a younger kid, I'd probably say maybe 3 to 5 stickers or tokens. So maybe this is a poster that you make or a sheet of paper that you have, and the child is working for, and they pick, and you put a picture of it there so that they know and they can see it. And every time they earn a token, they're filling up this board. It's kind of like bingo. And once they fill them all up, they get their reward. And then guess what? We're working on something new now. Maybe the goal is a little bit more difficult. Maybe now we're seating for 7 minutes or 10 minutes. So we're progressively working our way up to something more difficult. If we started with it too hard, they're going to lose interest. So they have to be able to attain these goals, okay? So the use of token economies is very supported in research. I love evidence-based treatment. Sucker for a good research article. So they've used token economies in a variety of research settings. I read a study, it was from 2001, so it is a little old, but they were using token economies in one group, and then the other group was not using reinforcers, so they were on medication. And in 66% of the subjects did better on just the token economy. That's pretty powerful. And again, these can be used in a global state. So if you're a teacher, I know that some kids have like colors that they can move up and down on based on their behavior, or clouds, or whatever those systems are that various teachers get really creative with. So it can help a lot to have a system like that if kids can work their way back up, right? So if it's 7 a.m. and I already am down on my lowest color and that's where I stay the rest of the day, and I can't work my way back up to green or whatever color is good, my day's over, so I'm just gonna be bad all day. So I can't do anything else, right? So making sure that if, there's some wiggle room, We're not taking stickers away. Once they earn a sticker, they keep it, okay? We don't take them away. So those are just some general basic behavioral principles about token economies and how they work. And they are really supported in research in terms of both in the classroom and at home. It's also kind of fun. That was one of the things I liked about working with children, making these in session, making them with the parents, getting people involved. Because if they're making them, then they're more excited about it. And now that I'm spending time with mom making something that's really cool, and this is like a really cool me and you time. And then we get to go home and we get to really focus on this. And parents that have multiple children can have one of these for each of their kids. I remember I made one with, and this will be my last little snippet of information. I made one with a little kid who developed a lot of behavioral problems after the birth of his sister. Just a lot of acting out, impulsivity, hitting her. And he really loved the heat, which I love the heat too, Miami Heat, from South Florida originally. So we made a slam dunk board. So he earned basketballs. And then we wrote 12 different activities on hoops. And whatever hoop he drew out, that was the activity he got to do. So he earned we had 3 target behaviors. If he did these behaviors, he earned basketballs. And when he got 5 basketballs, he got to pull out a hoop, and it would say what the reinforcer was. And these were all things that he had picked. So maybe one was a 10-minute bike ride with mom. Maybe one was going for ice cream. So really having them involved to invest their interest in it, because at the end of the day, they have to be involved in their treatment, right?
As far as tokens go, do you find that actual tokens, that is something you can hold or keep in your pocket, I guess, is that more powerful than something like a star that the teacher puts on a chart?
That's a great question. And I'm going to say that depends on the kid, right? So if we're talking about a child who has ADHD, what's going to happen when those tokens are missing? Because I lose stuff, or I forgot them at school. And now I just lost 15 of my tokens that I worked really hard for. So for, kind of trying to figure out what developmentally, where this child is, if they are responsible enough to carry tokens, or if that's something maybe you're working toward, but also preparing for, if you do have a child that has ADHD, those are likely going to get misplaced. So if, instead he wants to, or she wants to put them in a jar on the counter, or maybe mom holds them, whatever it might, your system might be, just keeping that in mind.